Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times News Podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes. To keep in touch with us, use our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, which are all at Q and Review. That's CUEANDREVIEW. Or get in touch via information@qandreview.com. That's information@CUEANDREVIEW.com. Please like and share our podcast and give us any constructive feedback.
From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 11th of August 2022, from the news section. It's disappointing. Glasgow group hits out after community-grown plants stolen. A West End community has hit out after around 20 plants disappeared from the streets. Members of Love Thornwood, a local group based in Partick, are devastated by the thefts, which started in May when volunteers began planting vegetation along the roads to increase biodiversity, encourage bees to come to the area and brighten up the streets. The activity is part of their project, Thornwood in Bloom, funded by the Partick and Thornwood Ideas Fund. As the Glasgow Times reported last month, they are also hoping the plants will combat pollution from two drive-thrus, a Burger King and a Starbucks, being built in the neighbourhood. These will be located on the stretch of green space between the Clydeside Expressway and Glasgow Harbour, close to the Thornwood roundabout, and their construction is ongoing. In recent weeks, Love Thornwood founder Sean Conroy, 55, estimates that around 20 flowers and bushes were taken, mostly from Dunbarton Road. He said, "It's disappointing that we can't increase the biodiversity of the area because of someone's selfishness. Newly planted plants are easily dug or pulled up, and someone stole our recycled wheelbarrow a few months ago. It's difficult to have anything in bloom when people keep nicking the plants." The group does not know who is behind the cruel crimes, but is ready to take action to discourage this behaviour. Instead of involving Police Scotland, they plan to warn potential thieves directly. Mr. Conroy added, "I'm going to make signs for the area to inform people of the Thornwood in Bloom project and discourage them from taking them. We just hope that who's ever doing it is planting them and not throwing them away just to disrupt what we are doing. We are pretty gutted at seeing our work pulled apart, but we are hopeful that through time people will become more aware and recognise that everyone deserves a wee bit of beauty and colour in their lives." This article was by Esther Tane. From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 11th of August 2022, from the news section. Amazon and eBay under fire as Which investigation finds illegal weapons sold in the UK. Online retailers Amazon, eBay and AliExpress have come under fire after a Which investigation found illegal weapons being sold by third-party sellers. The consumer group found banned offensive weapons such as zombie and flick knives, knuckle dusters, swords and batons on sale on the sites for as little as 49p. Under UK laws, the weapons should not be available for sale in the UK and cannot even be owned in a private home. If a person were to be caught with one of these products, they could face arrest and a prison sentence. What illegal weapons were found on Amazon, eBay, AliExpress and Wish? Searching on Amazon, Which found more than a dozen listings for friction lock batons masquerading as trekking poles. It is illegal to buy and to sell these batons in the UK. Some of the listings Which found used special characters such as baton in the title, or the word only being used in the artwork, presumably to avoid detection by Amazon. On eBay, Which found a variety of illegal swords, zombie knives and knuckle dusters, including a 23-inch serrated-edged zombie knife, £27, and a 27-inch zombie blade with a red fire design, £32. One seller was offering a combo deal on a karambit blade and a paralysing spray for £13.99, which found the widest selection of weapons for sale on AliExpress and Wish, with simple searches of the terms flick knife, automatic opening knife and spring-assisted knives, returning dozens of results on each, many priced at less than £10 and some even marketed for self-defence. On all 4 platforms, additional banned weapons were recommended by the platform's algorithms after Witch's initial searches. Head of Consumer Policy at Which, Sue Davies, said, "It is disturbing that our latest investigation has uncovered illegal weapons being sold at online marketplaces at extraordinary cheap prices, and that these tech firms are also pushing additional dangerous items to people. This raises a big question mark over the checks and monitoring being done by these platforms. It's clear that online marketplaces need to take more responsibility and prevent illegal weapons appearing on their sites." An Amazon spokesman said, "We require all products to comply with applicable laws and have developed industry-leading tools to prevent non-compliant products from being listed in our stores. We are disappointed when bad actors evade our systems, and we will use these learnings to improve our prevention mechanisms. These products have now been removed from the store, and we are taking appropriate enforcement against the bad actors in question." An eBay spokesman said, "eBay UK prohibits the sale of the vast majority of knives, with the exception of letter openers, certain tools and dining cutlery. Sellers must comply with our policies as well as any applicable laws and regulations when selling knives. As an international marketplace, our policies vary across the world, and some of the listings highlighted by which are permitted under US policy and sold by US registered sellers. UK buyers are blocked from purchasing these knives. We are investigating why this block did not take place in this instance. eBay takes the safety of its customers very seriously. We enforce our product safety policy using block filter algorithms that aim to prevent unsafe products being listed on site in the first place, and the eBay security team perform additional checks to identify listings that do not comply with our policies, and takes enforcement actions against sellers. This could include removing listings, selling restrictions, or account suspensions." This article was by Kieran Doody from the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 11th of August 2022, from the news section. Pharmacists concerned over medicine shortages in UK, by Carlo Simone. An urgent warning has been issued by pharmacists over medicine shortages in the UK, according to a new survey. A poll of 1,562 UK pharmacists for the Pharmaceutical Journal found that more than half, 54%, believed patients had been put at risk in the last 6 months due to shortages. Some patients have been facing difficulties accessing some medicines in recent months, sometimes having to go to multiple pharmacies to find their prescription or needing to go back to their GP to be prescribed an alternative drug. The problem came to the fore when shortages of hormone replacement therapy drugs led to an outcry earlier this year. Since June, the government has issued a number of medicine supply notifications which highlight shortage. Some of these include pain relief drugs used in childbirth, mouth ulcer medication, migraine treatment, an antihistamine, a drug used among prostate cancer and endometriosis patients, an antipsychotic drug used among bipolar disorder and schizophrenia patients, a type of inhaler, and a certain brand of insulin. The Pharmaceutical Journal also reported that on August the 3rd, ministers urged hospitals to conserve stock of an anti-clotting drug used to treat strokes. Some pharmacists have expressed concerns about switching patients on certain medication to alternatives. Community pharmacists told the Pharmaceutical Journal in August that shortages of the osteoporosis medicine alendronic acid were contributing to medication errors when alternatives were prescribed. The journal reported that talks have begun with pharmacy leaders and the government about ways to ease the shortages. Mike Dent, Director of Pharmacy Funding at the Pharmaceutical Services Negotiating Committee, told the journal, "We are becoming increasingly concerned about medicine supply issues and the very serious impact this is having on both community pharmacy teams and their patients." A Department of Health and Social Care spokesperson said, "We take patient safety extremely seriously, and we routinely share information about medicine supply issues directly with the NHS so they can put plans in place to reduce the risk of any shortage impacting patients, including offering alternative medication. We have well-established procedures to deal with medical shortages and work closely with industry, the NHS and others to prevent shortages and resolve any issues as soon as possible." This article was by Carlo Simone.
From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 12th of August 2022, from the news section, exclusive. I'm unable to get any closure. Mum of tragic respawner still waiting for PIRC probe. Answers 2 years on. By Amanda Keenan. A heartbroken mum whose teenage son was found dead says she is still waiting for answers on where he lost his life, 2.5 years after lodging a formal complaint about the police handling of the case. Stephanie Bonner says she's been left in limbo as she waits for the Police Investigations and Review Commissioner, PIRC, findings, and told the Glasgow Times that the lack of progress is also taking a serious toll on her health. Her son Rhys, 19, was discovered lifeless in marshland between Easterhouse and Gartloch Village on August 8, 2019. His death certificate says unascertained, with Stephanie claiming that she hasn't even been told exactly where his body was found. Police Scotland claimed the death was fully investigated and ruled not suspicious. Stephanie, 39, said, "I just want to know exactly what happened to my son and to have my concerns about how the police conducted themselves addressed. The complaint to the PIRC was made over 2.5 years ago, and I'm still waiting on an outcome. I would like to know why it has taken." From the Glasgow Times, Friday the 12th of August 2022, from the news section, Glasgow's Maryhill Road to close for resurfacing works, by Sarah Pacciaroni, multimedia journalist. A busy street in the north of Glasgow will be closed for resurfacing works. Maryhill Road will be shut from Shiskin Drive to Sandbank Street eastbound. Kibble Road right turn to Maryhill Road will also be closed. The works will take place between 9 AM and 4 PM on Sunday, August the 14th, until Tuesday, August the 16th. Glasgow City Council is warning motorists to expect delays. Drivers are advised to avoid the area and seek an alternative route. However, local access will be maintained at all times. And that article is by Sarah Pacciaroni.
This article is from the Glasgow Times, date 12th August 2022, from the Lifestyle section. Glasgow Great-Great-Gran celebrates being 100 years loved, by Esther Tarnay. A Glasgow great-great-gran celebrated turning 100 yesterday with her family. Susan Cassidy Gare, born in Bishopbriggs, is described by her granddaughter Lindsay Gare as family-oriented, very hard-working and house-proud. The Possil resident loves quiz programmes, murder mysteries, and was very excited to receive her letter from the Queen and to be spoiled by her family on her big day. Much to her joy, the family marked the occasion by getting together for a delicious meal at an Italian restaurant prior to an even bigger party on Saturday. Susan received lots of thoughtful gifts from her loved ones, including a special blanket with pictures and the words 100 years loved on it, a special necklace and a balloon display. Affectionately referred to as the Queen of the family, she was overwhelmed by the love and affection. Lindsay, who lives with her grandmother, said, "I'm really close with her. We always go out for afternoon tea and shopping. She is very funny and has a very good memory. My auntie and I live with her. She is always reminding us when we leave the house if we have our keys, phones or purse because we are terrible. The 100-year-old is in good health according to her family and has kept fit by doing housework into her 90s. She doesn't drink or smoke and likes to read the newspaper daily to keep up to date with affairs and to keep her mind active. Recently, she had a few health scares, including catching COVID-19 at the age 98 and undergoing hip replacement at age 99, from which she has recovered brilliantly. Her granddaughter said, "We all got the virus last year as we returned from London, but she was totally fine. We were worse off, me and my auntie. It was just like a cold." In March, she had her operation and she did really well after. Was out of hospital quickly, in just about after a week. Meeting at a dance at age 18, Susan was married to her husband Charles for 5 decades. They had a daughter, Melissa, 2 sons, John and Charles, 4 grandchildren, Lindsay, Muriel, John and Charles, 6 grandkids and 1 great-great-grandchild. That article was by Esther Tarnay.
Glasgow Times News on Monday, August the 15th. Glasgow mum's asthma was incurable cancer. An exclusive article written by Kirsty Fearick. A mum was terrified after she found out her asthma was actually incurable cancer in her lung and spine. Mary O'Brien thought her battle was over after getting the all clear from breast cancer in 2019. So when the 51-year-old from Royston in Glasgow began to suffer a cough and breathlessness later that year, she thought her asthma had returned. But after undergoing scans at the Glasgow Royal Infirmary in January 2020, it was revealed she had lesions on her spine and lung. She was then diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, which meant her original cancer had spread through her body, attaching itself to her other organs. Now, despite knowing she will never be free of the illness, Mary is determined to keep fighting to keep her condition at bay. She told the Glasgow Times, "When I was told it was not curable, I was devastated. I thought I was going to die there and then. I had lost my best friend to secondary breast cancer, so as you can imagine, I was terrified. I'm still fighting it, and for now it's treatable. People think that it's just breast cancer and treatment will cure it, but unfortunately this is not the case. For now, treatment is keeping it at bay." Mary was first diagnosed with breast cancer in 2015 after suffering a sharp and sudden pain in her chest and then finding a lump. She underwent treatment and 4 years later believed she was out of the woods until she became ill again in November 2019. Doctors then gave her an X-ray which revealed a suspicious shadow which resulted in them ordering a CT scan. Just 90 minutes after the scan, Mary received a phone call from worried medics telling her to go to the Glasgow Royal Infirmary immediately, and she was diagnosed with cancer again. Now she attends the Beatson regularly and is planning to take part in a 10K later this month in Glasgow to help raise funds for the charity. Mary said, "I was watching television one day and it was like someone had pinged me with an elastic band on my breast and I felt the lump. I had no other symptoms. Beatson Cancer Charity is important to me as I was diagnosed with breast cancer and I attended the hospital for my treatment. 7 years on and I've returned as I was diagnosed with secondary breast cancer in my lung and spine in 2020. I attend the Beatson every month for treatment and can't thank them enough for the support given to both me and my family. We're taking part in the annual Off the Beatson Track 10K event this year to raise vital funds for Beatson Cancer Charity so that they can continue to provide support and treatment to people diagnosed with cancer." An exclusive article written by Kirsty Fearick. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 15th of August. Inquiry into a fire which claimed lives of 2 men at luxury hotel begins. An article written by Lauren Brownlee and Lauren Gilmore. A fatal accident inquiry into the deaths of 2 men in the fire at Cameron House in 2017 will commence on Monday. The inquiry, held at Paisley Sheriff Court, will look at issues around guest and fire safety at the hotel on the banks of Loch Lomond following the fatal fire in December 2017. The blaze at the five-star Cameron House Hotel claimed the lives of Simon Midgley, 32, and his partner Richard Dyson, 38, from London. Hotel operator Cameron House Resort (Loch Lomond Limited) was previously fined £500,000, and night porter Christopher O'Malley was given a community payback order over the fire. The purpose of the inquiry, the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service say, is not to apportion blame, but to determine the cause of death and establish what lessons can be learned to minimise the risk of future deaths in similar circumstances. Unlike a criminal trial, the fatal accident inquiry system is inquisitorial rather than adversarial and is a fact-finding exercise. The sheriff hears all the evidence presented in court and listens to the witnesses before delivering their determination. In the determination, the presiding sheriff can make recommendations to the parties involved, including recommendations about precautions which can be taken in future, improvements that can be made, or systems that should be put in place to prevent future deaths. A spokesperson for the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service said, "The service understands that the wait for proceedings must have been extremely difficult and stressful for those affected. We will continue to keep the families of those involved fully informed and answer any questions they may have about the process during the fatal accident inquiry." Dumbarton Sheriff Court heard in January last year that the fire started after Mr O'Malley emptied ash and embers from a fuel fire into a polythene bag and placed it in a cupboard which contained combustibles, including kindling and newspapers. Cameron House Resort (Loch Lomond Limited), owner and operator of the hotel, admitted failing to take the fire safety measures necessary to ensure the safety of employees and guests between January the 14th, 2016 and December the 18th, 2017. The company admitted 2 charges of breaching the Fire (Scotland) Act of 2005. Mr O'Malley admitted breaching sections of health and safety laws which relate to the obligation on an employee to take reasonable care for the health and safety of people affected by their acts or omissions at work. An article written by Lauren Brownlee and Lauren Gilmore. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 15th of August. Man sacked from his job after heated incidents with a group of youths on a train. An exclusive article written by Lauren Brownlee. A man told a group of teens he'd kill them and do more jail time before assaulting one as they left a train for their own safety. Members of the public intervened following the incident on the Glasgow to East Kilbride service. Jamie Anderson, who's 30, was already on board when the group of teens made their way on at Glasgow Central Station on September the 27th last year. The 5 youths, aged between 15 and 16, asked Mr Anderson to leave them alone as he appeared to be engaging in conversation with them. He replied, "Make me," and "Come on then, I'll smash you off the F with 5 stars G window." He then said, "When you do get off this train, I'll kill you. I'll do more jail time." Members of the public told Mr Anderson to leave the boys alone, as they are just kids, and he shouted, "When I was younger, I respected adults. This is how I have a nice watch and car." The youths were speaking to a member of staff about Mr Anderson's behaviour when he overheard. He stood up and began shouting. Staff members asked the teens to leave the train for their own safety. As one did so, Mr Anderson grabbed him by the collar of his jacket and pushed him. The boy threw a bottle of aftershave towards Mr Anderson, and he replied, "Thanks for the aftershave." Someone tried to pick it up, and he also pushed them. After the group left, Mr Anderson shouted out of the window, "W with 5 stars S." At Glasgow Sheriff Court last week, Mr Anderson's lawyer said his client lost his job as a result of the incident, as he was with a group of young people on the way back from a training course. The lawyer added, "These young people saw this conduct as well. That's the reason he was dismissed from his job." British Transport Police was contacted following the incident. Prosecutor Laura Martin said, "Officers first spoke with a group of youths who looked shaken up and said the accused made threats to kill them. Police then spoke with the accused, who stated he'd done nothing and he was hit on the back of the head. They requested he provided his details, but he refused to do so and shouted F with 2 stars K off. He made attempts to walk away from the police, stating, "I'm boarding that F with 5 stars G train." He thereafter stated, "I'm not giving you details." He was informed he was under arrest. An officer took hold of his arms. The accused swung his arm and broke free, shouting, "F with 2 stars K off." He made off, heading down the platform. Officers gave chase and apprehended the accused. He was shouting while resisting arrest. He couldn't be formally cautioned and charged due to his behaviour. Mr. Anderson's lawyer told the court his client accepts full responsibility. He added, "He acted without thought. He has difficulty with anger management and mental health. He's residing at a Scottish Veterans Charity for those who completed tours in Afghanistan. Before this incident, he was being checked by his GP for PTSD." Sheriff Alan Findlay ordered Mr. Anderson of Castlemilk to carry out 200 hours of unpaid work as a direct alternative to custody. He told him, "If you breach this, you're going to jail." An exclusive article written by Lauren Brownlee. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 15th of August. Mum gives back to hospital that saved one twin. An article written by Kirsty Fearick. A big-hearted mum has donated thousands of pounds to a hospital that could only save one of her twins. Kirsty Black had the bittersweet moment of bringing home tiny tot Ayla with her partner Kevin Allen, who's 34, after they tragically lost little Ava. We previously reported how the 23-year-old mum had to turn off her baby girl's life support after she was born at 25 weeks, weighing just 1 pound and 11 ounces. It comes after she suffered a severe brain bleed and had her heart stop for 12 minutes before being let go at just 5 days old on New Year's Day this year. Meanwhile, Hero Medics battled to save her sister Ayla, who also suffered a brain bleed, which was thankfully more mild, allowing her to defy the odds and go home to Carluke 93 days later. Now the first-time mum is thanking NHS staff at University Hospital Wishaw by donating money she raised on a race night, amounting to £3,300, to go towards their neonatal unit. Kirsty said, "I would like to thank everyone in the maternity department, neonatal unit and the special care baby unit at University Hospital Wishaw for the care they provided to my daughter Ayla. The support they provided to both myself and my daughter was exceptional. Ayla was in the best of care and the nurses were amazing in looking after her as if she was one of their own. I'd also like to thank everyone who came along to the race night for the incredibly generous donations which will go towards helping other premature babies and their families who need specialist care." Kate Boyle, senior midwife at the University Hospital Wishaw, said, "This is a wonderful donation from Ava and Ayla's family. It was our privilege to care for the family, and for them to think of us is so kind." An article written by Kirsty Fearick. Glasgow Times News on Monday, August the 15th. Row grows over decision by theatre to cancel comic show. An article written by Ross Hunter. The decision by a Scottish theatre to cancel the Glasgow comedian Jerry Sadowitz's remaining shows at the Edinburgh Fringe after he reportedly got his P with 4 stars out on stage has been met with a backlash. The Pleasance Theatre in Edinburgh cancelled Mr. Sadowitz's second show, scheduled for Saturday night, stating, "Opinions such as those displayed on stage by Mr. Sadowitz are not acceptable, and the Pleasance is not prepared to be associated with such material." Mr. Sadowitz also allegedly called Conservative MP Rishi Sunak a P with 3 stars, and said the economy was awful because it is run by blacks and women. Constitutional lawyer and former Conservative MSP Adam Tompkins tweeted his surprise at the decision by the Pleasance. He said, "The day after the attack on Salman Rushdie, this is the action of leading venue at the Edinburgh Fringe. To cancel an event because some people may find it offensive, it's beyond shameful." Mr. Tompkins referred to Salman Rushdie, who was attacked on stage in New York last week. He is the subject of a fatwa calling for his death over his 1988 book The Satanic Verses, which is banned in Iran as many Muslims view it as blasphemous. His tweet was liked by Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling. Other celebrities have also jumped to the defence of the controversial comedian. Presenter Jeremy Vine said, "I've seen Jerry Sadowitz perform 4 times. Each gig was more offensive than the last. No one complained because that's what Jerry does. Piers Morgan said that the cancellation was an issue of free speech, tweeting, "Imagine getting a comedian cancelled on the day Salman Rushdie was stabbed. Pathetic. Free speech is being destroyed." However, the Pleasance has defended the decision in an updated statement. It said that a large number of people walked out of the show on Friday night because they felt uncomfortable and unsafe. A spokesperson for the venue added, "We've received an unprecedented number of complaints that could not be ignored, and we had a duty to respond. The subsequent abuse directed to our teams is also equally unacceptable." An article written by Ross Hunter. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 15th of August. Twins kicked out of Transmit hit with fine. An exclusive front page article written by Lauren Brownlee. Twin sisters who were kicked out of Transmit became abusive to police, with one having to be placed in fast straps. Sophie and Emma Steele, both 19, attended the music festival in Glasgow Green on Saturday, July the 10th. They were asked to leave at 7 p.m. because they were too drunk. Police then had reason to speak with Emma, but she became aggressive. At Glasgow Sheriff Court last week, prosecutor Darren Harty said, "She shouted F with 2 stars K, U, F with 5 stars G, C with 3 stars S. You're all A with 8 stars S." She was placed in the back of a police van. She was cautioned and charged, and she replied F with 2 stars U, F with 2 stars off, and F with 2 stars that F with 5 stars, B with 3 stars H. As a result of her sister being placed in the van, Sophie began to shout. Mr. Harty added, while she was being placed under arrest, she became extremely violent and started to kick her legs in order to resist arrest. She kicked a police officer in the left arm, causing soreness and redness. Police placed her in fast straps for officers' safety. Her reply to caution and charged was, "You actually think I'm going to get charged with this?" The twins' defence solicitor told the court that Emma pleaded guilty at the first opportunity. He added, "The report is relatively positive. She's accepting of her actions and embarrassed. She's currently on a community payback order and a structured deferred sentence. Both are making positive progress. The recommendation is a financial penalty. She's just started a new job." Sophie's situation is largely similar. She works as an admin assistant in an office. Sheriff Jonathan Guy told the pair from Rutherglen, "Your behaviour was very poor. Having regard to your age and the terms of the reports, I will take on the suggestion to impose a financial penalty." Emma was fined £176. Sophie was also fined £176 and ordered to pay £100 compensation to the officer she kicked. An exclusive front page article written by Lauren Brownlee.
Evening Times, August 17. Opinion. Nicola Sturgeon says, "Edinburgh festivals are amongst the best in the world." The excellent weather we have been having recently has been something of a talking point. Unfortunately, it is a sign of climate change which needs to be taken much more seriously. However, there is also no doubt that most of us will have been enjoying the summer sunshine, and that is probably especially true of the many visitors to Edinburgh's festivals, which got underway last week. This is the 75th anniversary year for the Edinburgh International Festival, the Fringe, and the Film Festival. The anniversary would have made this year special in any circumstances, but after a gap of 3 years because of the pandemic, it is particularly brilliant to see the festivals back in full swing. There are over 3,000 shows, exhibitions, film and author events taking place between now and the end of the month, and many of them are free. For those who cannot make it to Edinburgh or attend shows in person, many events can be live streamed or viewed online. These are amongst the best festivals anywhere in the world, and even those of us from Glasgow really have to admit that there are few places anywhere on the planet more vibrant or better to be during the month of August than our capital city. Of course, Glasgow has had its own cultural reason to cheer in the last few days. It is brilliant news that the city has been named on the shortlist to host the Eurovision Song Contest next year. It is, of course, deeply unfair that the war caused by Russian aggression makes it impossible for Ukraine to host the 2023 competition. However, that makes it all the more important that the successful city puts on a good show with solidarity for Ukraine at its heart. Perhaps, not surprisingly, I believe that Glasgow is the obvious and overwhelming choice. Our city has a proven track record in successfully hosting major global events, from the Commonwealth Games to COP26, and it has music in its soul. In tough times, and these times are certainly that, it is important to have things that lift our spirits. Over the past month, there is no doubt that our Team Scotland Commonwealth Games athletes have done that. Their performances exceeded all expectations, making these Scotland's most successful games ever, with the exception of the home event in Glasgow 2014. Of course, every medal is special, but it was especially thrilling to see Eilish McColgan win the 1500 metres, matching her mum Lizzie's gold in the same event back in 1986. The performance of each and every one of our athletes in Birmingham has been inspiring, and I am looking forward to meeting some of them soon to say congratulations in person. Our athletes have certainly given us something to smile about in the difficult times caused by the cost of living crisis. The severity of this crisis cannot be overstated. Food, energy, and housing costs are soaring, and destitution is becoming a real prospect for many households and families. That is why the Scottish Government is investing almost £3 billion this year in a range of measures which will help people with their finances. And we will continue to maximise the direct financial assistance available to those most in need, principally through ongoing work to extend eligibility for and increase the value of the Scottish Child Payment. But it is a statement of fact that the Scottish Government does not currently hold the powers urgently needed to provide meaningful and direct support to those who are struggling. The levers which would make the biggest difference lie with the UK Government, including the power to borrow money and responsibility for energy policy, the minimum wage, national insurance, and most social security spending. As leader of the Scottish Government, I am committed to working with any politician of any party to help alleviate the financial pressures being faced by many households. That is why I have written to the Prime Minister to seek an emergency meeting between the UK Government and the leaders of the governments of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland to agree urgent steps to help and support those in need. We have also called on the UK Government to introduce an urgent package of measures to help people. First and foremost, the expected rise in the energy price cap should be cancelled. The direct financial support already provided should be doubled, and a further windfall tax should be applied to ensure nationalisation of the massive profits being made by some companies out of the current pressures. People need help right now. They cannot afford to wait until the Tory leadership farce ends. There is a duty on the UK Government to act now. Government ministers are not paid to sit on their hands. If Boris Johnson and the UK Government will not step up and act to protect those who are most vulnerable, then they should immediately give devolved governments the tax, welfare and borrowing powers to do so without delay. For the UK government to sit idly back and do nothing, while people increasingly suffer, is unconscionable and totally unacceptable, says Nicola Sturgeon.
From Glasgow Times, Wednesday the 17th of August 2022, from the news section, "He is our inspiration. First day of school for boy who shouldn't have survived," by Catriona Stewart, columnist and reporter. Parents everywhere will be shedding a tear as their little ones head off for their first day of school. But for Mum and Dad Jade Gordon and Kieran Connell, the day will be especially emotional as they wave goodbye to new Primary 1 Noah. Noah was a surprise to both his parents when Jade gave birth in May 2017, having not known she was pregnant. The little boy had multiple health conditions that prompted medics to warn Jade and Gordon to make as many memories as possible in case he didn't survive. He has had 11 operations in his life. But 5 years later, Noah has flourished and achieved milestones his mum and dad thought that he would never see. And today he will be looking sharp in his new blazer as he joins his classmates at Kilburn Park Primary School. Jade, from Burmullock, said, "The last 5 years have gone by in what it feels like 6 months. It's been dead emotional, especially seeing him in his uniform. I have been crying, and there will be tears when we wave him off because he has defied everybody's expectations, even ourselves. He keeps learning to do more and more and proving everybody wrong. We are just so proud, overwhelmed with pride." When Noah was born in Glasgow Royal Infirmary weighing £6 7 ounce, he wasn't breathing and was whisked away immediately for emergency treatment. It would be a week before Jade, then 18, and Kieran, then 16, could hold their new son. Photos of her at her 18th birthday party show no sign of a baby bump, despite the fact she would have been 6 months pregnant. So when she went into hospital with stomach pains, it took doctors a few hours to spot she was in labour, and then Noah appeared. He had been born with part of his spine missing, an underdeveloped jaw, cleft palate, small neck and floppy airway. At first, doctors referred to it as Noah syndrome because his health issues were so unusual. Then the 5-year-old was diagnosed with Pierre-Robin sequence, facial abnormalities that cause problems with breathing and mean he cannot swallow. He also has hemifacial microsomia, which means the lower half of one side of his face is underdeveloped. This means that if he gets anything in his mouth, even water, it could kill him, so it takes 3 people to bath him, and being caught in heavy rain could be fatal. Noah became the first baby in the UK to have metal scaffolding inserted into his face to hold bone fragments in place and save his life. Surgeons at the Royal Hospital for Children, Glasgow, carried out an operation called a mandibular jaw distraction, breaking the jaw in 2 places and straightening his face with metal rods. His tongue was pushed forward to cut the chances of him choking. Jade remembers the 2 parts of the operation as if it were yesterday, waiting for 12 hours for the first part of the procedure to be done and then 10 hours for the second. It was 10 months before he was discharged from hospital, and Kieran and Jade were taught how to turn the screws in his metalwork by precise measurements. Despite everything he was going through, Jade says Noah is the smiliest wee boy who loves shaking hands with people he meets and is mad about Christmas, Celtic and Little Mix. He also adores his gran, Anne-Marie Connell, who helps care for him and is a doting granny. Noah's best friend at nursery will also be in the same class at school with him, and Jade said the pair are a double trouble. Jade said, "He is so loved. It might seem like a lot to people, but this is our normal." Noah sees so many different specialists and is at the hospital all the time, but we're just used to it. I wouldn't change a single thing. Jade reveals that not everybody is kind towards Noah, with online trolls saying desperately cruel things about the wee boy and his family. People often also stare when they're out in public, but Jade said they did not let negativity affect them. Jade, who was in college training to be a nursery nurse when Noah was born, said support from Glasgow Children's Hospital charity has helped the family. The family had cuddles with their wee boy in the PICU unit using the charity's MOVE project, and he loved passing long hours in hospital with sensory equipment funded by them. A state-of-the-art surgical microscope was also used during her surgeries. Last year, Noah contracted COVID-19, which was a terrifying time for the family, as they did not know how the virus would affect his other conditions. But luckily, he made it through. And recently, the family priest at the local St. Catherine's Church took Noah through his first Holy Communion and his confirmation. Noah's favourite time of year is Christmas, and even though we're in August, he is listening to Christmas music already. For everything Noah has went through and continues to go through daily, he still fights on with remarkable strength and does so every day with a beautiful big smile. He is our inspiration. Kirsten Watson, CEO of Glasgow's Children's Hospital charity, said, "Starting school is such an important milestone, and we hope that Noah and all of the patients we support have a very special time at school this week. For 20 years, our charity has supported children like Noah, and we're incredibly grateful to the people of Glasgow for their generosity." And that article is by Catriona Stewart. From the Glasgow Times, Wednesday the 17th of August 2022, from the news section. It's been such a success. Glasgow charity gives free back to school haircuts, by Morgan Carmichael. A Glasgow-based charity offered free back to school haircuts. As reported by the Glasgow Times previously, the Halliday Foundation said it was providing the services to help struggling families amid the cost of living crisis. Kids were invited to Barfield Community Centre and Helenslee Community Hall for their fresh trim. Chris Halliday, 32, Director of Operations, said 46 children had their hair cut on Monday, with dozens expected throughout Tuesday. He said, "I'm well chuffed. I went home on Monday night and I was absolutely buzzing. I couldn't get to sleep. It's been such a success." Chris added that the Dalmarnock charity also handed out gas and electricity vouchers. Hairdressers Robin Murray, 30, from Yoker, and Nathaniel Buckley, 28, from Drumchapel, were both happy to help out at the event. Robin said, "It feels great to give back to the community and be part of it. It's a passion." Nathaniel added, "It feels very good to give back. It's a great feeling." And that report was by Morgan Carmichael. From the Glasgow Times, Wednesday the 17th of August 2022, from the news section. Darius Campbell-Dinesh was on the verge of pop idol comeback before tragic death, by Lauren Brownlee. Former pop idol contestant and theatre star Darius Campbell-Dinesh was on the verge of a pop idol comeback, reports the Scottish Sun. We reported yesterday that the singer and actor, who was brought up in Bearsden, was found dead in his US apartment in Minnesota on August 11th. Police confirmed that there were no signs of intent or suspicious circumstances, but the cause of death is unknown at this stage, while medical examinations continue. A source has revealed to the Scottish Sun that Darius had been really excited at the prospect of a pop idol reunion. It's believed he was set for a potential return to the UK in just weeks for the special show, being made by Thames TV. Stars of the competition from across the globe have been invited back, as well as Queen singer Adam Lambert, who won American Idol. Plans are being made for filming at the Criterion Theatre in London. The pal told the Scottish Sun he was really excited about the reunion and was in talks with producers to appear on it. They were looking at getting filming started at around the end of September. It was going to be an hour-and-a-half long special hosted by Anton Deck and full of nostalgia for the millions of Pop Idol fans. I spoke to Darius recently and he was in good spirits. He was his usual happy self. Simon Cowell, former Pop Idol judge, remembered Darius as just a great person to be with following the news of his death. In a statement given to the PA news agency, the 62-year-old said, "I first saw Darius on television over 20 years ago and I got to know him really well. He was charismatic, funny and just a great person to be with." Hundreds of others paid tribute to the star, who won Hearts in the first series of the ITV talent show, coming third behind Will Young and Gareth Gates in 2002. Gates said, "I can't quite believe the news of my dear friend Darius passing. I'm heartbroken. Darius took me under his wing during our time in Pop Idol, like a big brother, always looking out for me, and for that I thank you, my friend. I will miss our chats. He was one of the most beautiful, intelligent and gentle souls I was lucky enough to know, a soul that lit up every room. Goodbye, my friend, forever in my heart, X." And that report was by Lauren Brownlee. From the Glasgow Times, Wednesday the 17th of August 2022, from the news section, 2 arrested after complaints of housebreaking in Bishopbriggs Colston Road. Report by Sarah Pacciaroni. 2 people have been arrested following reports of 2 alleged housebreakings in Bishopbriggs last week. A 40-year-old man and a 26-year-old woman were charged with housebreaking. The alleged incidents reportedly happened in the East Bartonshire town's Colston Road around 7 p.m. on Friday, August the 12th. A police spokesperson said, "Around 7 p.m. on Friday, August the 12th, police were called to a report of 2 housebreakings on Colston Road in Bishopbriggs. A 40-year-old man and 26-year-old woman were arrested and charged in connection with the incident. They were due to appear at Glasgow Sheriff Court on Monday, 15th of August, 2022. And that report was by Sarah Pacciaroni.
Evening Times, August 17. Lifestyle memories of Glaswegians' favourite seaside theatre. Report by Anne Fotheringham. For summer entertainment, Glaswegians eagerly flocked to Barfield's Theatre in Largs during the 40s, 50s and 60s. The list of stars who have performed there over the decades is impressive. Stanley Baxter, Jimmy Logan, Una McLean, Billy Connolly, Kylie Minogue. Kylie Minogue? Technically, the Australian pop star did not grace the Barfield stage, but she did visit to appear on the McCoist and Macaulay radio show, which was being recorded there. Footballer Ali and comedian Fred interviewed Kylie, and Fred, who had broken his leg, even persuaded her to sign his plaster cast. Fantastic local stars, such as violinist Nicola Benedetti and singing duo Gallagher and Lyle, as well as Largs Amateur Operatic Society, Largs Players and Largs Youth Theatre have also appeared there. Barfields opened in 1930 and at its peak entertained more than 1,000 people twice a night during the busy summer season. Its first few shows included a traditional opening ceremony performed by Mrs. Barr, the wife of the landowner who donated his fields for the theatre, and a free variety spectacular with stars from radio, theatre and gramophone. The Ardrossan and Saltcoats Players put on Bunty Pulls the Strings, and Largs Choral Society staged Rob Roy the following weekend. During the war years, Barfields was adapted as a base for Catalina RAF seaplanes, with Opportunity Knox presenter Hughie Green stationed there. The theatre's unofficial historian, Ryan Moyer, who helped form a theatre users group around a decade ago in a bid to revive the venue, says it was a favourite destination for Glasgow's theatre lovers. He smiles. Some of the big city theatres would close in the summer. It was basically panto until April, then nothing. So many audiences and stars would head to the seaside, to the likes of Largs, Dunoon and Ayr. Barfields was built as one of those seaside pavilion theatres, which would all compete with one another to get the best stars. A few years ago, I interviewed many local people who still remembered the heyday of Barfields, and they all said it was an exciting time. There was a real buzz in the town. The stars would move into the town, Ross Bowie, father of DJ George, ran a lot of the shows, and he owned the Royal Hotel, so many of the stars would stay there. There would be after-show parties, of course, and some stars took houses in the town and really got involved in the community. So you might turn up at the bar and see Jimmy Logan doing a turn, or bump into Andy Stewart opening a church fete. There was a putting green outside the theatre, and Johnny Beattie and Hector McNichol used to play together, competing with each other to see who could be the best. Under the stage was a caretaker's house, and one year Anne Fields, one of Scottish variety's unsung heroes, who was a feed for people like Johnny Beattie, actually stayed there. She lived beneath the stage for the whole run. For many Glasgow folk planning a trip down the Water, choosing a destination was as much about the quality of the summer show as it was about the accommodation or things to see and do. Says Ryan, these shows were a huge draw for people, and they were rooted in tourism. Even the twice nightly timings were organised around meal times at the town's guest houses. That's why the timings were often quite odd, 6:20 and 8:40, for example. Lots of local people would go too, of course, not just tourists, and some even had their own permanent seats. The advent of television and the demise of variety changed the Barfield's Theatre's fortunes forever. Says Ryan, it was an exciting, magical era, but by the 1970s it had all but disappeared. There was even talk of pulling Barfield's down at one point. For the next few years, the theatre relied on amateur groups and occasional touring shows to bring in audiences. But in 1993, a major refurbishment added a swimming pool and a visitor attraction called Vikingar, all about Viking history in the area. The theatre is now run by KA Leisure, the local authority's arm's-length cultural service, supported by Barfield User Group, BUG, which comprises members of local amateur theatre groups who help out front of house and fundraise. Ryan, who was chairperson for the first few years, is still involved despite a busy schedule touring and performing with his own sing-along children's theatre show, The McDougalls, and he is very proud of what the group of volunteers has achieved. He smiles. They're a fantastic bunch of people, a really active group. Barfields is in safe hands. Barfields is opening up its doors again, following a tough few years, courtesy of COVID and lockdowns. The first act to appear is Just Beatles, a Fab Four tribute band, on August 20. For more information, follow Barfield's Theatre on Facebook or visit their website at barfieldstheatre.com. Did you go to the last summer show at Barfields? Which seaside shows do you remember? Get in touch with Times Past to share your stories and photographs, says Anne Fotheringham. Evening Times, August 16. Lifestyle Memories. Radio documentary uncovers Kinning Park mystery and tragic soldiers' Glasgow links. Report by Anne Fotheringham. Like many roads in Old Kinning Park, Keydon, Keyden Street, lies forgotten beneath the M8 motorway as it sweeps through the area from the Kingston Bridge. You wouldn't know by looking at the area now that this small street ever existed, explains local historian Brian D. Henderson. Yet if walls could talk, what a tragic and poignant story the tenement close at number 22 would tell. The story begins in Ireland in December 1916. It was during the height of World War I, and Private Francis Correri was killed while availing of a free buffet provided to soldiers at Limerick Junction railway station. When radio documentary maker Tom Hurley came across his grave more than a century later, his surname struck him as unusual, and he set out to investigate what exactly had happened to the young soldier. The result is a riveting radio documentary which travels from Tipperary to Glasgow with many twists and turns along the way. Tom explains, "This soldier died in 1916, but in a way that's where the story begins rather than ends. This is the story of a family, a journey that involves crime, the lives of people in World War I, buildings and landmarks, mystery and sadness. Glasgow features heavily in this story." Tom contacted Brian, an amateur historian who's a member of the Old Glasgow Club, for help. Brian explains, "It was a fascinating journey for me. My research took me to the Glasgow Room and the City Archives, both at the Mitchell Library. I enjoyed immersing myself in this unfolding story, and I had never been interviewed for a radio program before, so it was quite an experience." After his death, Private Correri's widow, Mary, his daughter Elizabeth and sister-in-law Nellie arrived in Glasgow, firstly to Wallace Street in Tradeston. "What brought this grieving family to Glasgow?" says Brian. "Perhaps Francis's death, its traumatic and accidental nature, might very well have fueled a strong desire to leave Ireland completely. They stayed at Wallace Street for a short time, it seems, then moved westwards to Kinning Park. Here the family moved into 12 and then 22 Keydon Street, a compact road of 4-storey tenements running from the end of West Scotland Street south to East Vermont Street and parallel with the rear of St James Street, now Seaward Street." Says Brian, "The 1881 census reveals that number 22 would have comprised a combination of 1 and 2 apartment houses, traditional single ends and rooms and kitchens. An unrelated poor relief application from 1921 suggests the tenement had been subdivided, and it was in one of these smallest of houses that the Correri family made their third home. In 1927, further sadness visited the family when Mary died at the then Southern General Hospital, formerly the Merry Flats Poorhouse, and now the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, from heart disease. She was only 53. 3 years later, the Wall Street crash brought the Great Depression in its wake, and Miss Helena Falvey, Mary's sister Nellie, threw herself at the mercy of the Govan Combination Poor Relief Authority. She was listed as a domestic in Thornton Hall on the south of the city, earning 10 shillings per week, says Brian. Her rent was 16 shillings and 7 pence per month. The Poor Relief Authority offered her a short-term award of 4 shillings per week. Nellie died in December 1965, aged 79, and Elizabeth returned to Ireland. Says Brian, as for 22 Keydon Street, it disappeared in the late 1960s. But of course the human stories did not vanish with the physical roads and buildings. Rather, they became part of the culture and history of Old Kinning Park. Tom's documentary helps Keydon Street come to life again and ensures the twists and turns of Private Corelli's family saga will forever be bonded with Glasgow. Brian is leading an Old Kinning Park and Plantation Heritage Walk for Doors Open Day next month. It will meet at Kinning Park Underground on Cornwall Street at 11 a.m. on September 17. Limerick Junction Man was originally aired in June on Tip Med West Radio in Ireland. The programmes are now available on tippmedwestradio.com. Do you remember Keydon Street? Did you live in Old Kinning Park? Get in touch to share your memories and photos, says Anne Fotheringham. Evening Times, August 15. Opinion. David Linden says, now's the time to shop local to support our communities. It's not often you'll hear me paraphrase Boris Johnson to develop an argument, but hear me out. Back when he was Mayor of London, the bumbling clown who is soon to be our ex-Prime Minister once said that a pound spent in Croydon is of far more value than a pound spent in Strathclyde. It goes without saying I disagree profoundly with that statement, and if Johnson is to be believed, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, then even Boris Johnson no longer agrees with Boris Johnson. But there is a point in what he said about the value of the pound we spend, and most importantly, where we spend it, especially during the current cost of living crisis. As a millennial, I know all too well how reliant my generation has become on the instant buy now future on Amazon. I've been known to use it myself. On the face of it, it's cheap, it's easy, and it's fast. But is it good for our local economy? Most of the time, no. Now, I'm not saying that Amazon or bigger out-of-town shopping developments do not have a place, not least because I have a huge Amazon warehouse and out-of-town shopping development, Glasgow Fort, located in my constituency. If we are all being honest, however, many of us have taken our eye off the ball when it comes to spending more of our hard-earned cash locally. Many of my constituents understandably complain to me that Shettleston Road, Parkhead Cross, Tallcross Road and Baillieston Main Street have largely become nothing more than a disproportionate archipelago of takeaways, tanning shops and bookmakers. Gone largely are the days of our high street with bustling fishmongers, fresh greengrocers and butchers. Critics shrugging their shoulders at this and saying, yes, so what? Would be right to argue that the majority of our remaining independent butchers, bakers and hardware shops are more expensive than your big supermarkets or the likes of Amazon, and most of the time they are right. But that argument is only one piece of the jigsaw. Here in Glasgow, the Federation of Small Businesses estimate that there are just under 19,000 small businesses which contribute £8.7 billion to the local economy. In short, that means when I buy local, my money stays much closer to home in the community. I'll give you an example. With Parliament now being in recess for the summer, most MPs get time at home without shuttling back and forth to London every few days. For most of us, It's the one time to get on top of home improvements or get the garden back to a semi-respectable standard. And yes, my neighbours in Carntyne will be reading this and wondering when I'm going to get round to it. Soon. Having decided that the carpets in my house were getting a bit past it, I wanted to get some new flooring done. My decision: spend local or go for a big brand. These days, I am trying to make a conscious effort to keep my spending local, so I was delighted to get Shettleston firm Saltire Flooring to do the job. You see, by choosing to spend my cash with Saltire Flooring, that's keeping local people, Stuart and James, in employment. Indeed, I remember once seeing a sign outside a local butcher shop which simply read, "Spending locally here helps pay for my daughter's local dance class." And that hits the nail on the head. Politicians, even Boris Johnson, are fond of saying things like, "We're all in this together," and sometimes it's just a turn of phrase. However, if that is to mean anything, then we need to seriously think about everyone in our community and how we can help with our spending decisions. I know fine well that the mince I buy for tonight's lasagna will be a bit more expensive from my local butcher shop in Carntyne Square than it would be at a big chain supermarket. But in buying my butcher meat locally, I'm not only helping to support my local butcher and his business, which employs local people, I am also supporting his daughter's local dance school, which in turn helps a local dance teacher to provide for their own family, and so it goes along down the spending chain. There is no doubt that things are getting tougher financially. I am under no illusion that opting to spend a little more right now is a luxury that some people simply cannot afford. I know it feels increasingly like every penny is a prisoner, but if you can, please spend locally and support our small local businesses at this time. Because, to paraphrase Boris Johnson, a pound spent in a small business is of far more benefit to the East End of Glasgow than a pound spent in a big supermarket whose post-tax profits run into the billions of pounds each and every year. With a difficult winter ahead, we'll all be living local a bit more. Let's love local too, says David Linden. Evening Times, August 15. Lifestyle. Remembering Glasgow's King of the Swing, bandleader Harry Margolis. Report by Anne Fotheringham. He was a Sheffield-born showman who travelled the world. But who was Harry Margolis? Here are 5 facts about the legendary bandleader. Glasgow's King of the Swing, Harry Margolis, was a larger-than-life character who devoted his whole life to entertaining others. He was a big band leader who loved to make people laugh, driving around with a large red phone on his car dashboard, even although it wasn't attached to anything. He would often wind his window down at traffic lights, hold the phone out to a passer-by and say, "It's for you." Harry grew up in a flat on Rutherland Road in the Gorbals, one of 6 children. His parents were Jewish refugees who had fled the Russian pogroms. He discovered his lifelong love of music at the age of 7, starting with the violin and graduating to the bass guitar. While still at school, a scout spotted his talent for music and invited him to join a big band in Brighton for a season. When he returned to Glasgow, he played at the famous Locarno on Sauchiehall Street and decided to form his own band. He was a fixture on the city's thriving music scene in the 40s and 50s, and eventually travelled the world as band leader, agent and entrepreneur. Harry had a home at Bermuda's Elbow Beach Surf Club and frequently played New York and Las Vegas. He met Fats Waller, Joe Loss and Count Basie, and one of his proudest moments was meeting Jack Dempsey, the former world heavyweight boxing champion. For many years he ran his own entertainment organisation from his home in Giffnock. He and his band also had a decade-long association with the Pivot venue in Wellington Street, playing there each Saturday afternoon. Harry died on Christmas Eve 2014 at the age of 97. Report by Anne Fotheringham.
And that was this week's Glasgow Times News podcast, normally recorded in our studio at the Bishopbriggs Media Centre, currently recorded from our volunteers' homes with the publisher's kind permission. Thanks for listening.